Good evening. Welcome to the Silence Theatre at the University of Brighton. Some of you are very familiar with this venue. But this venue, as well as the Duke of York Cinema and some others in Brighton Hove, provide CineCity with its venues for our annual film festival. Each year, CineCity, we develop a programme of a range of material, new previews, new films made in Brighton, and as this evening represents, also material which represents contemporary artist practice. Over the number of years, we've developed a number of projects. Last year was the Quay Brothers, before that was the Austrian avant-garde. This year, we're very pleased that we've been able to work with Mark Lewis, who is here this evening. And if you haven't seen it, in the gallery on this floor, but you have to go out and around, there are 3 works by Mark, including a world premiere, Hendon FC. This evening is an in conversation between Mark and Laura Mulvey. Mark and Laura have worked together, they're friends. In fact, Mark's first film was a co-production with Laura. Laura Mulvey, many of you know, is a very eminent film theorist and historian. You are. And Mark, over the last decade, has been working consistently in North America and Europe, and many of the most important galleries in Europe and North America have presented his work. So I'm very pleased that the 2 of them are with us, and they're going to speak to each other, with each other, for about 45 minutes, and then there'll be time for questions and answers. And about 6:30, these doors are open here, and if you'd like to join us for a glass of wine, please do. And also to encourage you to see the exhibition if you haven't already done so. So, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Frank, and thank you for inviting me to come and do the conversation with Mark, and I'd like to thank Tim Brown as well, who I think I can see sitting there. And it's very nice to be back here in Brighton, as I worked with both Tim and with Frank in the past, so I feel there are a lot of interconnections here this evening. Now, I did indeed make a film with Mark in 1990 called Disgraced Monuments, and I'll come back to that later on in the discussion, because I'd like to bring it in non-chronologically, kind of thematically rather than chronologically. But I wanted to start actually with one aspect of the festival, the programming of the festival here this year. Where Mark's very first film, Two Impossible Films, is being shown. And this is in the context of the not showing at this cinema, which is a programme about films that have never been made. So before we go on to the main conversation of the evening, I just wanted to ask Mark about perhaps why he started making films with films that can't be made, and the interest of the residue, the trace of something which isn't actually there. So perhaps, Mark, you could describe a little bit, first of all, what Two Impossible Films consists of, and how you came to make it.
Thanks, Laura, and also thanks to everyone for inviting us. Two Impossible Films was made in 1995. It's a film shot in 35mm CinemaScope, so super widescreen. It consists, no color, it's color. It consists of the opening credit sequences and the closing credit sequences of 2 films that were never made. The first was based on Eisenstein's dream to turn, no, the first one is based on Samuel Goldwyn's desire to try and bring Sigmund Freud to Hollywood to make the greatest, oops, I should have turned my phone off. Sorry about that. To make the greatest love story ever told. He thought that Freud would, basically the story of psychoanalysis, I suppose. And Samuel Goldwyn went off to, in a much publicized and photographed setting, he went down to the docks, took sail for Vienna from New York, and said he was off to meet with Mr. Freud to bring him back to Hollywood. He went to Vienna, he waited several days in a hotel. Freud refused to meet him. He sent a telegram to the hotel saying, "I do not intend to meet Mr. Goldwyn." So he went back to Hollywood without Freud. I mean, it's a kind of publicity stunt. I don't think he ever really thought that Freud would agree, but there you go. And the second project was a plan or a fantasy or a lifetime dream, as you wish, by the Russian filmmaker Eisenstein, who dreamed that he might make Das Kapital into a feature-length film, and a thoroughly impossible project. And I thought I would try and imagine if those two films were made today, i.e. in 1995 on the anniversary of the Lumiere brothers' first projections, the 100th anniversary. If I was to make them today, what would they look like? And I decided to use the opening credit sequence as a kind of material invention of cinema, as a kind of artistic form in its own right, and stage the opening credits for both these films. So you basically have live action footage on top of which is a kind of pulsing introduction of the major credits, and then there was a sort of fade to black after 10 or 15 minutes of long credits. And then a few intertitles suggesting that there was a story that we're not going to see, and then straight to the closing credits. So that was kind of the films as made them.
And so you did see them as tributes to films that had never been made, and that you were inventing a trace of these lost, or not lost films, lost projects.
I suppose. I mean, I suppose that was systematically embedded in the idea. I think to be to be slightly honest about it, I had come off the back of making a film with you which we completed in 1993, and found myself in a situation where I really wanted to make another film but didn't know what to do, because I enjoyed so much making the film we made together. And as at that time I was already an artist with a small career working with photographs and so forth, and sculpture, installation. I was just trying different things out like most young artists do, and I was desperate to come up with a film, and I didn't know what to do. And I remember just reading in the library one day and coming across the Eisenstein idea, and I thought, I'll make that film. And then I realized that to make just the one film about a film that couldn't be made would in a way make it about that subject. If I did make Eisenstein's film, it would be about Eisenstein and Das Kapital. So I then searched around for another film that hadn't been made, and as luck would have it, I found this Freud story.
Yes. So then you had Marx and Freud next to each other, which was fortunate and makes a very nice pairing. Anyway, I want to move on now, and what I really want to do in this conversation this evening is try and orchestrate an introduction to the three works that are on show in the gallery here, which are in order of being made. North Circular, which dates from 2000, Nathan Phillips Square,
A Winter's Night Skating.
A Winter's Night Skating, which was made earlier this year, 2009, and Hendon FC, which is really very, very recent. It has just been finished. So that means there are two films that come really from Mark's latest phase and the earlier one. So what I want to do now is actually start off with what I feel is a turning point, a kind of pivotal film